Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Amaya, and I'm here with my fabulous story imprinting business partner, Anne-Marie Hoftailing. Anne-Marie, how are you?
Happy Thursday. I'm doing just fine on this gorgeous San Diego Thursday. So,
Is that what day it is?
I mean, word on the street, that is what day it is. But I mean, who's to say?
Who's to say what time really is anymore? But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here
Not
to
at
talk
all.
about, not at all. Although I could talk about it forever. We are here to talk about op-eds. Now, some of you who follow our company who know me probably know I started out my career as a journalist and have worked in many newsrooms, and then for the past 7 years or so have worked with companies to help position them in the media and in the market. And part of that is always creating thought leadership. And what is thought leadership? Well, it's exactly what we're talking about: opinion pieces, blog pieces, something where you are asserting a point of view and urging a call to action, and you are showing why you are a subject matter expert in what you do. So I could go on and on and on about the mechanics of all of that, and we are doing a webinar about that in June that we encourage you to attend and sign up for. But I want to talk to you, Anne-Marie, as sort of a case study in why and how this works. So you started your business, your first business, in a terrible economic climate. Is that right?
It sure is. 2009, baby. The worst economic climate of my life. When else would you start a business?
Exactly. You're
Oh,
real
I
good at
know.
starting business.
In a pandemic.
That's right. And look at us. Here
Look
we
at
are.
us.
So I know that you had great success in writing an op-ed piece that has led to business not only immediately, but has continued to reap. You've continued to reap the benefits of that. So tell us a little bit about that process, like what the op-ed was about and where you pitched it and sort of where it's led you.
Yeah, so the very, very first op-ed I ever wrote was in the San Diego Business Journal, which I think is important to say because we think of these things as having to have big national splash.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about this with our clients. Sometimes it's much more powerful to place something in, say, a trade magazine than it is in the Wall Street Journal even,
Yep.
which is really counterintuitive. So it was in this very small, you know, I don't know the circulation, but it's not massive for sure. It was not a massive piece. It was a whopping 720 words, which I think is another assumption people make, that they're writing 1,200 words or something. This is really tight. It's 720 words. And I landed a very large national client. That was 11 years ago. That company has continued to be a client of mine. I've worked all over the country for that client. And I think it's important to understand that that one single piece was sort of like a key to a door. And that's really what op-eds are. So when I launched in the recession, I didn't have money for marketing. I didn't have money for, you know, a freaking snack, let alone to pay for marketing, never mind marketing. So I had to really figure out what could I do that was the highest impact, that could be a one-to-many reach, that might garner some exposure. And the easiest pathway was writing for me and speaking, and writing was the lead. That's what I was doing the most of.
What would you say to people who say like, oh, I'm not a writer, like there's no way that I could possibly write anything that anybody would want to read?
Yeah, I think that that's very typical. I didn't know anything. I mean, I hadn't been published up until that moment. So everybody has their first piece. It's not as complicated as people think. There's a structure, there's a way to do it. We will be teaching that in June. You have a lot of agency in that. And a lot of people are writing all the time. A lot of our clients are attorneys. They're writing all the time. You're already writing. This is just a more focused way of going at it. This is not an academic piece for people who don't really totally appreciate what an op-ed is. It's very specific, very targeted. You know, one of the things I was talking about in that piece, I still remember it, and there was like a single line in there that made this company call me, and it was that I said that sales and business development should be elegant and ethical, which were simply words that were not typically attached to sales and business development. That's not exactly a radical idea, nor is that earth-shattering. And I say that because I think it's important to realize that everybody thinks they have to come up with this big, giant, enormous provoking piece, thought-provoking piece. And I think, you know, take it down a notch and just make sure that it's your point of view and it's an original idea. That's it.
Yeah. And I think, you can use op-eds for different purposes, right? To elevate yourself as an expert generally in a more mainstream way, or, to get clients. And you make a great, you made a great point about the outlet doesn't have to be the Wall Street Journal. In fact, when I used to do PR for a very large commercial real estate company, as you know, and it like shocked me when I started working with them and started talking to the brokers. I'd say like, where do you want to get placed? And I assumed sort of naively that they would say like the big financial publications, right? Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, et cetera. No, they wanted to be in outlets like Globe Street, which is a very targeted commercial real estate focused online publication, but all of their clients, all the institutional investors, all of the big property owners, they all read that, right? And all of the retailers that would be hiring them read that. So if they see your name associated with something, they're going to skim the article and get the gist of it, but they're also going to remember, oh yeah, Anne Marie is an expert on XYZ. And what about editing? Like, what's your editing process like? Do you have someone who sort of edits for you? What would you say to people who are out there about the importance of editing?
Editing is really important, and also don't show it to 30 people.
Yes.
Everybody's I can't say enough, like people who shop it and shop it and shop it, you need to find one or two really excellent readers willing to read your work and give you some really good, solid, unvarnished feedback. And those people better be your friends. Don't reach out to professionals and ask them to do it for free. And I say that because people act as if giving feedback on writing is not work. It's work.
It is.
And to get excellent editing feedback is work. I would never send a piece to somebody who does this for a living or someone who, is a professional and expect them to do that for free. We send pieces to one another to review, but that's very different. So just also be very mindful of that. It's not okay to send a piece to someone and expect them to work for free, but find a really good reader. You probably have someone in your network and figure out what you can and say, hey, I'll read your pieces for you. And, a thing that we're always saying to people, also become an excellent reader of op-eds. If you really want to understand how they work, what the structure looks like, how the length, all of those things, we'll be covering some stuff about pitching and other things that we can't dive deeply into today. But once you understand that structure, it really is the gateway to thought leadership. This is where people discern that you are, sort of an expert in your field. And if you don't have any content out there, it's very hard to determine. A, it's hard to find you. B, it's hard to point to anything that actually demonstrates your expertise.
Yep. It's one of those things that just requires discipline and the willingness to do it. And I frankly think now, I was in a professional group meeting last night talking with a group that I facilitate about this. And I said, we all have time. Like, we're not going anywhere. You may be going a few more places than you were a month ago, but you're still, we are all sort of grounded. And so you have the ability to sit down and be really thoughtful and disciplined about this. And if this is something you want to do, to your point, you've got to commit to it. You've got to research the outlet. You've got to know how to pitch, all of which we're going to talk about on June 25th. So please register. But thank you so much for sharing this story about that piece in the Business Journal, because I know it's brought business even now, 11 years later. And I think it's a remarkable example of just planting those seeds and watching your sort of thought leadership star rise. So thank you so much. And yes, and everyone check out our YouTube channel. I mean, you're here, you found us, but peruse the other videos. There's lots of good nuggets out there. And feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have. Stay safe, everyone.
And let us know if you have any other topics you'd really like us to cover. Just, let us know in the comments. We would love to be able to talk about anything that's really important to you, because this is what this is for. So
that's right. Thank you, Anne Marie. Great to see you.
Bye.
Bye.